Danny, appreciate you doing this.
Hey Rick, how you doing?
Good. I have to admit I was very nervous before I watched this because that's sort of my era a little bit. I
Yeah.
when I was in college, I saw their Winterland show. So
Did you?
yeah.
Oh my God.
So I was kind of curious, and I think it really did a nice job of catching sort of the chaos of the situation. It was, and can you talk a little bit about that because it seems like it was purposely edited and directed that way.
Very much so. I think if you're going to do the Pistols, the philosophy, the dress code, everything about it was chaos. And it was the flinging together of provocation, of senselessness. And one of the dangers with making a television series or creating a piece of writing about it is that part of your job is order, to make things make sense. But you cannot let the absolute kernel of what it's about, the senselessness, the chaos that Malcolm and Vivian said is the source of real creation. You cannot let that be destroyed by filmmaking order or the need for things to feel progressive and to make sense in that order. So it's a battle all the time where you're trying to, and we were helped by the fact that we made it during lockdown, so none of the executives could fly in from LA. We were left completely alone. And I mean, some of it was pretty chaotic. I mean, we tried to make form equal, we tried to make it in the way that it is, the content is. We made it in a chaotic, some would say irresponsible way. But it benefited from that. And I knew it would. I really did. What did you think of Winterland?
I think I'm glad I was there. At the time, it was a bit of a nutty situation. It was a lot of sort of violence right under the edge. I remember a guy with a football helmet running back and forth through the crowd, butting people, and just it,
Amazing.
it was a very odd situation. I'm glad I went, but I don't know that I had a good time at the time. but
That's
but
historic that you were there. That's amazing. You know,
yeah, I
for
was I was
us,
I
because
was lucky. I lived in LA, so I got to see a lot of shows at the Whiskey and stuff. So I
yeah,
was really good at which sort of watching this reminded me, that the Pistols they hit in the UK very different than they hit in the US. In the UK, it seemed like it was very much a class situation, working class sort of. Where in the US, my recollection is it was more sort of fighting the rock aristocracy and the sort of it was less about class and more about rock and roll.
yeah. It was a very there was a they were a big part of the liberation, really, of the working class lads, especially, and girls in a way, because one of the delights in going back to it was realizing just how powerful some of the women were in it. Vivian and Jordan and Chrissy, those girls, it was, and the Slits. We don't portray them, Vivian Albertine and people like that. But it was a class, yeah, and I came from that. I'm from a working class background, very similar to them, and I always say that, and I don't know whether it's the same memory that you all have, but my memory was very vivid. You were young, and then you were old, and there wasn't much in between, and people began to dress like their fathers even before they expressed their opinion whether they might want to or not. You just followed this path. And they interrupted that. They literally grenaded that spot and said, fuck that. You can do what you want. You don't have to do that. This is your time. Don't let them time you. This is your time. And waste it if you want. And be futile, be vacant, be idiotic, be senseless. But that's you. Do it. And that gap began to widen. And it's widened my whole life. I've watched it widen, the gap between being young and it's where we all live now. And the whole economies are based on it because that enjoyment of pleasure, for whatever our problems are, and there's lots of them, obviously, but it's the sense of take pleasure in doing what you want. And if you've got something to say it, that was much more liberating than the Beatles, I think. Much more. Even though they only made one album, and obviously the Beatles have a higher musical value, etc., etc., but the detonating point that they blew apart society was, in Britain anyway, was that 75 to 78, 2.5 years.
Well, I looks like I got to wrap here. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I really enjoyed it, and I
Oh,
have a feeling this is one of those things we could talk about for a long time.
yeah,
So,
we could. And I'm so pleased to meet someone who was at Winterland. That's wonderful.
well, congratulations on it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Cheers, man.
Bye.